Okay, so I talked about some of the things that I like about this game, you know, the weapons laid around, the bosses, but now what I want to talk about a little bit are my gripes. And if you watch my playthrough, you probably are very familiar with these, but for everyone I just want to review them and kind of summarize them into one singular area. Number one, I'm sorry, but when I'm playing something that's supposed to be a role-playing game, I like a good story. I think that's a major critical aspect of any good role-playing game. I mean, whether it's Final Fantasy, whether it's Chrono Trigger, whether it's a Japanese-style role-playing game that's come out over the past couple of years, like Infinite Undiscovery, The Last Remnant. I mean, there are so many games that are Japanese role-playing games, that are American role-playing games, and they all have that moniker of RPG, but one of the core elements is the story. Now, don't get me wrong, RPG does really fit Borderlands in another reason, and the reason would be because there's experience leveling up, there's loot that drops, there's money that drops. A lot of those role-playing game elements are in the game. However, to really call this game a fusion of first-person shooter and role-playing game, to be completely honest, I don't think it's true. I think what this really is emerging of is the gameplay of an FPS game with the gameplay of an MMORPG. That's right, one of those online games where you cooperatively play with your friends and there's a lot of grinding, leveling, loot collecting, and things like that. And again, kind of speaking to that, this game can get really goddamn hard in certain parts. I've played some MMORPGs where I would be a level 30 and I was able to go off and solo level 34 and level 35 monsters. And the reason I was able to solo is because I played the game smart. Whether it was my strategy, my class, the way I played that class, I was able to outsmart these enemies and eventually kill them. However, in Borderlands, it's a lot fucking harder, especially if you're soloing. You're going to see a lot of the times in my playthrough, I tried to take on enemies that were only maybe 1 or 2 levels above me. I mean, I tried to do missions that were only 1 or 2 levels ahead of my level cap, and unfortunately, I couldn't beat them. I mean, these guys would literally take down my shields with 1 to 2 shots and then kill me with a single shot. So here I am, fucking 45 feet away from this dude, and he's got this fucking, you know, shotgun, which for whatever reason is able to hit me with from that kind of distance. I've got a sniper rifle, I'm trying to snipe him, and he hits 2 glancing blows on me and I'm dead? And it's only because of the level difference. I don't like that. I'm sorry, I believe that, sure, there should be a leveling aspect, and yes, if I grind and I get to a higher level than the guy I'm fighting, I should have an advantage, but it shouldn't be so much of an unfair advantage that if you are smart enough to try to outsmart that guy, for example, me sniping a guy from so far that I should be way out of his range, he shouldn't be able to still kill me so quickly because he's higher than my level. I disagree with that aspect of the game. I think they could have done that a lot better. Finally, the biggest disappointment about this game by far goes hand in hand with the fact that the story sucks, the ending. And I would say, spoiler alert, and I would say if you haven't beaten the game yet, stop watching, you know, turn back here, but let me tell you something about this game. There is no fucking ending. You see that you beat the final boss, and what happens? You get a 2-second blurb from the fucking, you know, floating head that's basically been your guide through the whole game. You get no explanation of what's going on. There's no payoff. They have this really weird scene where she zaps the fucking claptrap from the beginning of the game and he turns into a ninja assassin. And I guess that's supposed to be comic relief, but when you've played through a game as long as Borderlands that requires so much an investment of time as Borderlands, which is basically 20 to 25 hours to do one singular playthrough, you're going to be pretty pissed if you're expecting a really cool endgame and all you get is some little bullshit, and then basically the game throws you back into and says, oh, by the way, keep playing or start a new playthrough. Ha ha, the joke's on you. Fuck you, buddy. We don't care about story. We're just hoping that you like the gameplay enough that you like the game and you keep playing it. For me, I like a good endgame. Again, like I said, if this was a true fusion between FPS and RPG, I want that good ending to say, look, you toughed it out, you grinded your ass to the top, you outsmarted every boss in the game, you outsmarted the mobs of repetitive enemies we threw at you, congratulations, here's your cookie. And then they give you a good ending to give you a nice satisfactory feeling at the end of the game. You don't get this with Borderlands. In fact, you kind of feel like, man, maybe the game's not over, maybe I gotta keep playing. And I even have to admit that after I beat the game, you'll see there's 2 additional parts after the credits that I continue to play the game because I'm kind of just surprised and amazed and in awe that the game is doing that to me. There's no ending, and now they're just saying start the game over with no real additions. Don't get me wrong, if you do start the New Game Plus, which is basically called Playthrough 2 in this game, there are some bonuses, like you stay at your level that you're currently at. So I stayed at level 36. You keep all your weapons, you keep all your upgrades, all of those things, and your enemies are a lot harder. So if you do a second playthrough, there is a little bit of incentive, especially if you've been addicted to the gameplay up to that point and you want to continue playing. However, if really you haven't liked the gameplay, or if you're just kind of getting bored and you're relieved that the game was so long you finally beat it, there's really no reason to come back to the game. Especially, again, if you're soloing the game and you're not playing with friends.
Okay, so maybe I'm a little bit harsh on the game, but I'm still pissed that I played it for so long and got such a shitty ending. However, the last thing that I want to touch upon is a good positive thing about this game, and it's the weapons. When you get about 3/4 through the game, you finally start to find some of the unique weapons, the better weapons in the game. You start finding alien weapons, which are really cool. They're called Iridian rifles, and they fire these huge pulse bursts that just do this monstrous damage to whatever they touch. Now, they're very slow, but they're so powerful that it's worth it if you can actually hit your enemies. And then you'll start to find some of the best guns in the game. And for me, for my playthrough, the best gun in the game by far was this handgun that I found that had this acidic quality to it that basically melted through anything I shot. And if you watch my playthrough, you'll see in probably the last 20 to 30 videos, I pretty much speed through the entire end of the game just by using this one handgun. I mean, this thing kills things that are close, things that are medium range, and things that are out in the fucking distance. It's just so accurate and so powerful, it even kills all the aliens at the end of the game, and it even killed the last boss alone with no other weapons. So, pretty badass. Love the weapons. Wish that the whole game was like that rather than waiting until, say, level 20 to 25 before you start finding the good ones. However, when you do find them, this is probably the best part of the game.
So the final verdict on Borderlands, overall, I think it's a pretty original game. It combines FPS elements with MMORPG elements, fuses them all together, slaps them into a pretty spiffy package, a pretty addictive package if you like that kind of gameplay, and it's pretty good. The one downfall of this game, which I'll now bring up, is that if you don't have friends to play it with, it's not very good. It's boring, it's repetitive, you don't have a lot of fun with the grinding like you would have had if you had friends to play with. And now I'm going to bring up the #1 problem with this game. It came out in the 4th quarter. And I'm sorry to say that because it is a pretty good game. I enjoyed it, but what is it with these game developers and these companies that they feel the need, the ultimate desire to release their games in the 4th quarter? I don't understand it. Just think about it. There were already 3 blockbusters coming out in the 4th quarter this year. You had Modern Warfare 2, Left 4 Dead 2, Assassin's Creed 2, and if you owned a PlayStation 3 to boot, the week before Borderlands came out, you had Uncharted 2. So actually, there were 4 games already in the 4th quarter lined up that pretty much everyone who owned a console at home were thinking of buying. And so when it comes to 4th quarter, are you going to spend your money on a game like Borderlands, where it's going to be a 25-hour investment of your time to just beat the game once? Or you're going to save your money for these games that everyone you know is going to be playing, everyone's already said they're buying, everyone's pre-ordered, the hype machine is there. And unfortunately, I don't like the hype machine, especially when it comes to shitty games or games that aren't up to par, like Halo 3 ODST. But anyway, the hype machine is really what's going to determine what people buy. And I'm sorry, but right now, a lot of people are so focused on those 4 games, honestly probably the biggest one of all being Modern Warfare 2, that a game like Borderlands gets shoved under the radar. And you want to know another game that has the same problem? Brutal Legend. That game was really good, but who fucking played it? Honestly. Some people did, some people rented it, but I really doubt that the sales numbers are going to stack up when you really kind of compare it to the other 4 games that I've already mentioned, and also, Borderlands is probably going to suffer from that same syndrome. I personally have friends who play all kinds of games, fighting games, FPS games, strategy games, people that play MMORPGs, and guess how many of them bought this game? 0. Fucking 0. One person that I know actually did buy this game. You want to know when he bought it? When I was level 32 and I was about to finish the game. So there was no way I was going to team up with him. He only actually bought the game because I'd already bought it before him and told him the game was good. So unless you have a friend who knows the game is already good, why would you spend the money on it? And this is my major problem. 4th quarter, everything gets overhyped. You get good games like Borderlands, which are worth picking up, especially if you have friends. And if you play it with friends, it's a better game than if you play it alone. But they get fucking shoved under the radar because they're 4th quarter. Why can't games like Brutal Legend, Borderlands, all these games that get rushed or get shoved or get pushed out in fourth quarter, go to a quarter like the first, and maybe not even the first, but the second or third quarter of the year. Let's be honest, there was a time back in, what was it, April, May, June, I was bored. There were no good games. Why couldn't these games come out during that season of the year? So because of that, all factors considered, overall, I got to give Borderlands a 7.5. And let me tell you something. If this didn't come out in the fourth quarter and I was able to play it with my friends, I probably would have given it a lot higher score. But because of their bad timing and their bad decisions, unfortunately, it's going to have to get that kind of a score. Sorry, but I got to be honest. This is the hateful truth. I'm DSP. You know I'm going to give it to you straight. Hope you enjoyed the review. Hope you got a lot of information out of it and you make some clever and well-informed choices when you go to buy games, during the Christmas season. And I'll see you next time.